Hello, welcome to CSE 239, Cyber Law, Ethics and Society. Today we'll be discussing deepfakes, and the question really has become, can you believe your own eyes? So let's start off by defining what a deepfake is. Deepfakes are essentially either videos or images that look so real and sound so real that you believe that someone is saying some incredibly incendiary thing. Well, that comes from the concept of deepfake technology, which was invented in 2014 by Ian Goodfellow, a PhD student who now works at Apple, a little company called Apple, as director of machine learning. Goodfellow was looking for a way to algorithmically generate new types of data out of existing data sets. So he was looking for ways to extrapolate data. Most deepfake technology is based on generative adversarial networks, also known as GANs. The two machine learning models fight against one another to create the best fake image possible. So one machine learning model processes a data set and then creates video forgeries, while the other machine learning model attempts to detect the forgeries. So every time something is detected that would indicate a forgery, the first model then would fix it and resubmit it. So it goes back and forth until all of the forgery detection is eliminated. And when you get to that point, you have a very viable deepfake video. Generative adversarial networks might also be used to generate new audio from existing audio, or new text from existing text. It is a multi-use technology. The larger the set of training data, the easier it is for the forger to create a believable deepfake. So let's take, for example, literature, which I know everybody loves more than life itself. But think about Shakespeare. The guy wrote millions of words. He has all of his dramas, he has all of his comedies, and he has tons and tons of poetry. So you could literally create a new Shakespearean work based on this GAN network, this GAN concept. So the reality is there's probably not a huge demand for it unless it's a defraudable kind of thing saying it was from when Shakespeare was writing. But the point is that now we have a system that allows for this kind of creative thinking from a machine. GANs enable algorithms to move beyond classifying data into generating or creating images. This occurs when two GANs try to fool each other into thinking the image is real. Using as little as one image, a seasoned GAN can create a video clip of that person. So again, when we're thinking about deepfakes, we have to think that it's not a human sitting there with the 12 million pixels that they're trying to adjust. Rather, it's a machine that moves very, very fast and can go through 12 million pixels, adjusting them to get to the right spot per picture in a video. So, you have to think about the amount of processing that needs to go on. A GAN can look at thousands of photos of Donald Trump and then produce a new photo that approximates those photos without being an exact copy of any one of them, as if it has come up with an entirely new portrait of the president not yet taken. Now here's one where they took Donald Trump and they took pictures of Nicolas Cage, and they worked to create the perfect blend, which appears on the right-hand side, and it is indeed a little scary looking. However, benign uses for this kind of technology are fun. We can go into an app and see what we'll look like when we're 80, or we can go into an app and see what we would look like if we were a different gender. But the reality is that most of us don't think about how dangerous a deepfake could be to the society at large, and that's really why we're talking about this. So, deepfakes rely on machine learning pioneered through artificial intelligence. In a paper explaining the process, researchers at the Samsung AI Center in Moscow lead researchers Igor Zakharov and his associates explained, quote, the system is able to initialize the parameters of both the generator and the discriminator in a person-specific way so that training can be based on just a few images and done quickly despite the need to tune tens of millions of parameters. This approach is able to learn highly realistic and personalized talking head models of new people and even portrait paintings. And again, where we're going to go with this is scary. So buckle up, buttercups. So here are some interesting deep fake combos kind of thing. And what they're doing is, and if you think of it as like multiplication, you take the top guy on the left, the white guy with the sunglasses, and you combine him with the young African American or dark-skinned Asian man, third one down on the left, and you get kind of a nerdy-looking, lighter-skinned adult male. And you go all the way down and you'll see and it's kind of like this weird sense of, if this person and this person had a baby, what would they look like? And again, it's just an interesting dynamic that humans aren't involved. You're just feeding pictures in, and it is coming up with it on its own because it is detecting its own faults. In late 2017, a Reddit user who went by the screen name, very original, DeepFakes, a combination of deep learning and fake, started posting a digitally altered pornographic videos. The user was building GANs using TensorFlow, Google's free open source machine learning software, to superimpose celebrities' faces on the bodies of women in pornographic movies. So, think about somebody like Beyonce or Rihanna or Jennifer Lawrence, Selena Gomez. Any of these young women are having their faces plastered on pornographic actresses' bodies. And again, the question really is, well, who's it hurting? Well, the fact is that these celebrities are, in fact, a brand. And they did not say yes to this, and it's involuntary. So there's no consent involved. So in response, what Reddit did was ban them for violating the site's content policy against involuntary pornography. In other words, non-consensual pornography. And again, the celebrity didn't consent to have their face put on this young woman's body. Next, the creator of the videos released Fake App, a platform for making forged media. Because if you can make money at it, somebody will do it. In August 2018, an international team of researchers affiliated with Germany's Max Planck Institute for Informatics introduced a technique for producing deep video portraits, a sort of facial ventriloquism, where one person can take control of another person's face and make it say or do things at will. Now, the researcher involved in the study believes that its most appropriate use would be for post-production dubbing in movies and television, because that is the first thing we all think of. Well, the reality is that yes, it can be used for this. In the new Star Wars the ninth Star Wars movie, Carrie Fisher, who played General Leia Organa, formerly known as Princess, passed away before it was made, and they're using old footage of her and integrating it into the scenes. And some of it will include some of this machine learning portraiture because she was such an integral part of the series. But on the other hand, there's a lot of dangerous things that you can do with this level of deepfake technology. So here is the actual kind of walking you through this. So you have your target video and you have a source video. So over there on the left, you'll see Barack Obama, previously President of the United States. And then you have below him a similarly shaded of skin person but who is got different hair, different forehead, different ears, all of that. So what happens is it goes through this monocolor reconstruction where it breaks apart things. Illumination, identity, pose, expression, eyes, all of those things. And then they modify those parameters. And you get your hardware, it renders, there's lots of rendering going on. And then you have your space-time encoder, your image encoder. And I know this is really high-level stuff for most of us. But just suffice it to say, you'll get an image of what you believe is Barack Obama, but what he is saying is whatever the guy from the source video is spouting off about. And again, you're going to see examples in our class page of these deepfake videos and the potential dangerousness that they bring to any environment. So, how do we stay ahead of them? Security experts are concerned with how good the deepfakes have become and how quickly they continue to improve. It takes a forger, or a deepfake maker, approximately 2 to 3 months to work around detection techniques that are implemented. So basically, the forgers are always about 3 months ahead of the institution or the corporate detection techniques. And again, it's difficult when you are a person who thinks that this is a really cool activity and people don't understand it. And then you have people who are using it for ill, for bad, for terrible things. And that's always the problem, is you have somebody who always, poops at the party and ruins the show. So, you gotta think about the value of the technology in addition to the danger of the technology. So right now there are over 30 nations actively engaged in cyber warfare at any time. Weaponized deepfakes could be used in the 2020 election cycle to further ostracize, insulate, and divide the American electorate. Weaponized deepfakes could be used to change and impact the voting behavior, but also the consumer preferences of hundreds of millions of Americans. Weaponized deepfakes could be used in spear phishing and other known cybersecurity attack strategies to more effectively target victims. So over here you have somebody doing the voice of Vladimir Putin that is being deepfaked into the picture of Vladimir Putin. Looks like Vladimir Putin to me over there on the right. And again, whatever's coming out of his mouth is coming out of the guy from the top, the source actor. Anyone with access to this technology, from state-sanctioned propagandists to trolls, would be able to twist information, manipulate beliefs, and push ideology that's extremist online communities deeper into their own realities. Here's one of the issues that we have with this very diverse world of news that the internet provides. People who believe one way or another, whether it's progressive or conservative, Republican, Democratic, they tend to read resources and visit websites that tend to agree with them. So somebody who is on the more progressive side probably doesn't watch Fox News all day, whereas somebody who's on the more conservative side probably doesn't watch MSNBC. Now think about this in terms of how this reflects in our day-to-day life. You go on social media. Well, Facebook learns about you, and as it learns about you, it continues to show you things that it thinks it may be of interest to you. So you may see article after article after article in the news on Facebook about a certain politician. But somebody who is from a different political bent and looks at different information is going to get a whole different news feed. And that's become an issue because now we're looking at, is there a objective reality or is everything just subjective based on what you personally believe? So this combination of technology and human nature can be a recipe for catastrophe. Dun dun dun. How could it impact an election? Well, it's the day before the presidential election, and a video of one of the candidates is released showing that person shooting up heroin or having sex with a sex worker or both. That would be exciting. Less than 24 hours exists before the election, which would mean that the candidate and their team would have less than a day to debunk the video. How many of us want a president who abuses heroin or cheats on their spouse? Or maybe that's not just a big deal for a lot of people. When you put it in this kind of a context, you have to say to yourself, oh my God, this could be a really scary situation. Now, for those of you on the who don't know what that picture on the right is all about, that picture is Elvis Presley, who died in 1977 or so, somewhere in that time period. And the guy on the left is the current leader of North Korea, who was about, 6 years old at the time. And what you're seeing here is the perfection of a deepfake. You have two men standing, handshaking, and it looks like a legit picture. Well, the original picture featured Richard Nixon. That was even more funny for some of us. So, is artificial intelligence a bad thing? Is it inherently bad? The technology is not bad in and of itself. It's the people who use it for corruption who are bad. So, you can make this the reasoning for everything from guns to heroin to knives to salt in a wound, anything. You can use it. It's always about the intent behind the idea. So what can be done to ensure that deepfakes and artificial intelligence do not corrupt the way we see the world? And that's a big issue these days because you can't tell what's real or fake anymore because so many things look real. We also are looking at issues related to gender and race, with the vast majority of deepfake videos created being pornographic and degrading to women. So over here on the right-hand side is a picture of Gal Gadot, who plays Wonder Woman. Woohoo! And there she is, all the way over on the right, topless. Now what they did is they just took the picture, put her head on somebody's body who was standing similarly with the necklace, the whole kit and caboodle, and you know what? Someone who doesn't know any better would think that was real. And the reality is that Gal Gadot's brand is now being impacted by this. And women in general are being impacted because even though we may, as a whole, try to see, that men have interests that are not ours, there seems to be a sense of degrading women to do this. And again, not saying it's a bad thing if you are into that and you're cool with it, but the degrading of women and minorities just is wrong from an ethical perspective. Kind of have to make that clear. So government institutions like DARPA, and remember they're the folks responsible for the internet, and researchers at colleges like Carnegie Mellon, Stanford, and the Max Planck Institute for Informatics are also experimenting with ways to combat deepfakes. Researchers are feeding algorithms both deepfake and real video, hoping to help computers identify when something is a deepfake. Governments are using technology to fight technology in a race that won't end, which kind of sounds like a nuclear war. And for those of us who lived through the 70s and 80s, that's pretty much what life was like every day. You just expected Russia, or the Soviet Union at the time, to nuke us at any day. Adobe has developed an AI-enabled tool that can now spot deepfake images. So, there are companies out there that are really trying to facilitate this. But also keep in mind that there's a lot of countries out there that have departments in their military that are just online fighters. They go online, they create fake information, they disseminate it on social media, and how social media responds is the corporate responsibility. And that's partially why people get, really super disgusted with situations and walk away from certain social medias. So, Deep Trace Labs offers a service designed to identify deepfakes. In September 2019, they issued a report that found there are almost 15,000 deepfake videos across streaming platforms. That's a lot. This is double the number of deepfake videos just 1 year earlier, so we're seeing an exponential increase. The study also found that the vast majority of the subjects of these fake videos across the internet, a full 96%, are of women, mostly celebrities, whose images are being turned into pornography without their consent. So, and again, when we think of a modern era of the 21st century, men, women being equal, consent being something that's discussed in relationships, this is obviously something ethically that we have to say something should be done about this. Deep Trace Labs study does note that outside of politics, deepfakes seem to be used to undermine cybersecurity concerns, enhance fake digital identities, and enhance social engineering against businesses and governments. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. So, outside of the politics, outside of porn, you have someone who might be catfishing someone, getting money out of them or getting just weird affection because they're a weirdo. They can use these deepfakes to create their own videos. Think about sex trafficking. Think about pedophilia, where, you claim you're a 12-year-old boy talking to a 9-year-old girl. Well, you're actually a 45-year-old weirdo pervert guy talking to a 9-year-old girl. But the video image that she sees on the webcam is a cute 12-year-old who looks like Justin Bieber. Used to look when he was cute and young. So let's talk about social engineering. So I'm talking about it from multi-levels. So from a sociology perspective, it's an attempt by a governing body, government, religious institution, etc., to manage social change and regulate the behavior of a society. One of the most significant social engineering experiments of the 20th century was the rise of the Nazi Party and their attempt to control people's perception of certain social groups, such as Jewish people and the handicapped. This led to the normalization of concentration camps, which led to the deaths of 12 million people after they were deemed inferior to true Germans. So during this era, Hitler just pointed to certain groups and said those people are not worthy of living in Germany, and had them exterminated for all intents and purposes. The other thing that comes along with that is that this social engineering has convinced people that the government was right. In the 1950s and 60s, when people started to come forward and claim that priests in the Roman Catholic Church had been abusing them, they were hushed up, and they were hushed up, and they were hushed up until the Boston Globe did a spotlight piece on how the Catholic Church had basically been hiding this in the early 2000s. Again, this blew up into a major story because it had been socially engineered by the Catholic Church to keep it under covers, to keep it wrapped up, and to not, publicly name these priests who were molesting kids. Instead, we just move them to some other parish where they can continue to molest. This normalization was something that kids in a lot of Catholic churches, including in my own, knew. You stayed away from the priest. You were never alone with a priest. And that's just normal when you're a 9-year-old. That's a scary thought. So, the Nazis used propaganda to convince German citizens that their troubles were due to these inferior groups who were taking German jobs and undermining the German economy. Now, if we replaced the word Jewish or handicapped, and we replaced it with immigrants, then we begin to see that this is a propaganda effect that still goes on to this day. Countries define who their internal enemies are. And for a long time, it was terrorists, anybody who potentially could be a terrorist. Now we're looking at anybody who is potentially immigrating to this country without the proper papers, despite whatever civil war is occurring. So again, this concept of social engineering and normalizing things is a huge issue. Going back to the Me Too issue, you have all of these women, all of these years, who had been sexually harassed, who reported it to HR, but it was all swept under the carpet because it was just women being hysterical. Well, nobody really wants to sit in a meeting and watch a man masturbate while you're trying to explain your strategies and goals for something. And yet, this was normal for some of these guys. Again, taking away that normalization is how social engineering can change it. So now you also have social engineering in a more technology-based concept. So have you ever looked at a post on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and it really made you angry? Did you respond? Did you ignore it? Did you look it up to see if it was true? Did you reply with a snarky remark? If you moved on and didn't check it for accuracy, you are much like everyone else on their phone or device. We're exposed to hundreds of pieces of information on a daily basis, and this information is being absorbed, and your opinions and attitudes change without you even realizing it. So, all of these things that begin to show up in your news feed on Facebook or Instagram, or, if you're using some other social media platform, even like LinkedIn or Tumblr, your mind is going to see an image enough that it may begin to change your attitude. So when we see pieces of information online that make us go, what? Or what the heck is that about? Go look it up. See if it's real. And then you will understand how prevalent this information is. In cyberspace, another kind of social engineering is the act of tricking someone into divulging information or taking action, usually through technology. The idea behind social engineering is to take advantage of a potential victim's natural tendencies and emotional reactions. To access a computer network, the typical hacker might look for a software vulnerability. A social engineer, though, could pose as a technical support person to trick an employee into divulging their login credentials. You get somebody calls you, says, I'm calling from your bank. We have some unusual activity. We wanted to verify it with you. They want to make sure it's you, so you end up, entering information or giving them information about your password or your security questions. And ultimately what ends up happening is they're hacking you. These are folks who may lack the technical skills, but may more than make up for it with the communication skills. So, the question then becomes, are deepfakes illegal? Well, that's not really something that we can say for sure yet. We have the First Amendment to consider, free speech, but then there's also intellectual property law and privacy laws. So over here on the right-hand side, you're going to see a picture of Jim Carrey on the left, morphed into Jack Nicholson. And again, it's uncanny that if you only look at it for a second, you think it's two Jack Nicholsons, maybe a young version and an older version. But deepfakes are so legitimately real-looking that it's become such a big issue about, well, what's more important, free speech or privacy? Or, do you own your own image? Pornhub, a large provider of pornographic videos, has removed and banned deepfake videos because the content violates their terms of service, meaning it's non-consensual. So they're using the same concept as Reddit. And again, that's what it's really coming down to, is did the celebrity consent to have their image used in this way? So once trust becomes corroded in a technology, it's nearly impossible to bring it back. If we corrupt one's belief in video, then how long until we no longer believe what we see on the news, in web clips, or in live streamed events? Social media is built on trust, and when the trust evaporates, will social media demonstrate the responsibility for what their consumers see or hear? That is a huge question these days, because if you see something on Facebook and it is posted by somebody that you think legitimately is in the news business, and it looks like Obama complaining about how Hillary Clinton did something inappropriate with Michelle Obama, you might be stunned and shocked and horrified. And yet, how do we know it's real? So then, we still are balancing this notion of free speech, and if a deepfake video of a public person can be interpreted as an invasion of privacy or a satirical view. Because again, somebody like Weird Al Yankovic has made a career out of satire, making fun of people's songs. It is essential for most 13-year-olds to love Weird Al for the last 30 years, because it is really dumb, funny stuff that he puts out. Most celebrity or singers don't really find it offensive. They think it's pretty funny. I think Coolio was not happy with the Amish in Paradise, but the rest of the internet truly liked it. So, again, these are questions that are still working their way through the news, the courts, and public opinion. And public opinion is largely influenced these days by what we see in social media, which is the connection that we have to draw. So we're also dealing with something called reality apathy, which was a term coined by Aviv Ovadia, in which constant contact with misinformation compels people to stop trusting what they see and hear. The greatest threat isn't that people will be deceived, but that they will begin to see everything as fake. So, again, we sit there and we're looking at stuff on the internet and we're like, that can't possibly be true. Do we go look it up on Snopes? Do we Google it? Generally, no. And that's really what I want to encourage all of you. Go look at stuff that makes you stop and go, really? And if it seems fake, it probably is fake. I can guarantee you that Jennifer Lawrence is not making pornographic videos. She would not be getting paid $20 million a movie if she were. So let's talk about how you can avoid falling for a deepfake. Currently, security experts point to a lack of eye blinking or shadows that look wrong. However, deepfake tools are improving this at a very fast rate. While the videos may appear real, you should also ask yourself about the social context in which they are posted. Who shared it? Was it a person, an organization? If it was an organization like the XYZ company, who are they? What do they do? Is it a fake organization? What was said about it by the person or the group who posted it? If a very right-wing racist group posts something about Obama, you can pretty much guarantee it is going to be a fake. On the other hand, if someone posts something about Donald Trump these days, we're just not sure. He's a little less predictable. So here are some great sources that I used. You will also see in our class notes a bunch of videos, but if you just go to YouTube and put in deepfake videos, you'll get a gazillion of them. Maybe not a gazillion, like 100 million. No, a couple million. No, 15,000. See? I was already quizzing you. All right, folks. If you have any questions, please email or text me. If you're not in my class but you still have a question, please feel free to leave me a comment and I will respond at my earliest convenience. Thank you and have a fabulous day.